There we go. Okay, so Chabakuk, our three-chapter book. I feel like we're in a trend now, three-chapter books. So let's just refresh because it's been a while. We opened with Chabakuk. Remember, it's this Masa, this pronouncement, and he's crying out, saying, God, I'm crying out to you, saying that there's this Hamas, there's violence everywhere, right? Almost echoing previous situations in the Torah, like Sodom and Amorah and Noach, where there was Hamas, right? And as a result, God finally listened and destroyed things. Judgment is perverted, all of these things. And God has that weird reaction of like, great, just get ready because I am gonna bring something worse. Right? The Babylonians are gonna come and they're going to destroy everything. And Habakkuk, instead of saying, oh, thank you so much for assuring me that the Assyrians are going to be destroyed, instead says, well, but wait a minute, then you're just like the fisherman's net that grabs everything indiscriminately, and the innocent are going to go down with the guilty. And basically, therefore, God, you are not really offering any source of comfort or assurance because the innocent are just going to be destroyed again. So that was our initial challenge to God. And then in chapter two, which we did, I guess, 2 weeks ago today, Habakkuk opens, and instead of retorting well, Habakkuk says, "Okay, al mishmarti e'emda," right? I'm going to stand here on my watch and wait, God, to see what you will say to me. And God responds, "All right, write the prophecy down." And here it is that someone's coming, right? Change is coming, and even if it tarries, im yitmahameh Chakelo, you should just wait for it because don't worry, eventually, salvation is coming. And basically, here's the ultimate, I guess, like your enemies, they've done terrible things, and don't worry, eventually terrible things will be done to them as well. And so the message is basically that you will get the ultimate redemption, you'll get the ultimate revenge. All of the ultimate things that you're asking for will happen, but they will happen ultimately, right? When we don't know. So this leaves us in a place of having to have faith that redemption will come, but that we don't know when. And so that's where we leave off. And now we begin today, chapter three, which, like I said, is the last chapter in the book, and starts with it strikes a different tone. In fact, chapter three was not found in the Dead Sea Scrolls version of Habakkuk, which leads some people to say, it really is like a separate piece, right? And then it wasn't originally part of the book. As always, we can debate whether that's true or not. I'm sure your footnotes have comments on that. And it opens with a tefillah lechabakuk hanavi al shigionot. So you can see here, this is translated as a prayer of the prophet Chabakuk in the mode of shigionot, because we don't really know what shigionot are. I'm going to assume that some of you have footnotes explaining what they might be. The word only appears one other place in Tehillim. Let me see, right, as a Shigayon in Psalms 7:1. So yeah, we don't really know what Shigayonot are exactly. Does anyone have any footnotes on there?
Yeah, I have a comment that it's errors concerning the errors as in Shkia, I guess.
Oh,
The prayer the Habakkuk is praying when it was revealed to him concerning the reprieve given to the wicked, and if they returned wholeheartedly to the Torah, they'll be forgiven with all the sins they
mhm.
sinned before him with a capital H, will be counted as inadvertent ones.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so Rashi in similar lines says Habakkuk's begging for mercy for himself because he'd spoken rebelliously against God, which is very interesting that if you say that Shigeon has this element of apology, that now when we're going to see this pronouncement of ultimate faith in God, that Habakkuk is not, it's not to be seen as like a natural next stage in the growth and development of him as a believer. Not that he wasn't a believer in chapter one, but also right as an apology, as a corrective to chapter one. I'm always less inclined to those types of approaches because I think the Habakkuk in chapter one is very valid, right, and shouldn't be apologized for. But I certainly can see why some people would want to think of that as a Chabakuk that needs to apologize for the daring to challenge God, or at least speak directly to God that he expressed. There are lots of similarities with this idea of like tefillah and Tehillim, which is why some people think that maybe this is written more in the style of the Psalms and not part of the actual original Habakkuk. All right, so that's our tefillah. This is our prayer. What is the actual prayer? Hashem, shamati shim'acha, yareti Hashem pa'alcha, bekerev shanim chayehu, bekerev shanim todia, beroges rachem tiskor. O Eternal One, I have learned of your renown. I am awed, O Eternal One, by your deeds. Renew them in these years. O make them known in these years. Though angry, may you remember compassion. Right, we say that in Tachanun. Um, all right. So already we've now feel like we've changed this we flipped the power dynamic in a lot of ways. We began the book with, Habakkuk standing right up to God, unabashedly being able to kind of challenge God. And now it's, even though you're angry, try to remember compassion, right? Habakkuk's really changing the power dynamic to being the one who is ingratiating himself to God, right? And God has all of the power, which I don't mean cynically. I just think it's worth noting. I'll just pause for any footnotes or comments. Okay. All right, what comes next? Elohai miteiman yavo vekadosh mihar paran sela kisa shamayim hodo v'tihilato mal'ah haaretz. God is coming from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. God's majesty covers the skies, such splendor fills the earth. Um, so Beasley says that starting with this verse and continuing through 15, this is considered a theophany, or an appearance of God. So it can be subdivided into two sections. 3 to 7 is the dramatic approach of God from the south. And then God's wrath is 8 through 15. He also points out, which you may have a footnote, that verse 3 is paraphrasing the beginning of Moshe's final speech to the people in Deuteronomy 33:2, which says, "The Lord came from Sinai and shone forth from Seir to them. He appeared from Mount Paran and came with some of the holy myriads. From his right hand was a fiery law for them." And it's in that speech that Moshe reminds the people never to forget, the Exodus, etc. And now it's sort of like Habakkuk is saying, yeah, that's foundational, and here's our faith, right? So this is super intense, I guess, statement of faith.
That's also the source for the midrash about the angel offering the Torah to the nations. So, like we pointed out before, Chavakuk and Moshe are the only ones who have this word of tefillah, of prayer. So, he's basically saying, since Hashem was so gracious to everybody else, he for sure will listen to our plea, on our behalf,
Mm,
and not ignore it, basically.
beautiful. Yeah, yeah. Great. Yeah, he says that, talks about that Rashi in a footnote here. Yeah. All right. So how does Habakkuk continue for the next two verses? Oh no, excuse me, it was four more, right? In this theophany, v'noga ka'or tihiyeh karnaim miado lo v'sham chavion uzo. It is a brilliant light that gives off rays on every side, and therein God's glory is enveloped. I just feel like it's so wordy. Okay, any comments on here? Meaning of verse uncertain. Uh, okay, fine.
I have a more literal translation.
Great.
Yado with God's hand, the rays from his hand.
The rays from his hand. Okay, great. Yeah, that's exactly what Beasley says also. And his strength was hidden in there. Yeah. Once again, JPS. JPS. All right. Lefanav yelech daver v'yetzei reshef leraglav. Pestilence marches in front and plague comes forth at God's heels. All right. So Dever, right? One of the plagues, which we will be talking about in what is it? Is when's Pesach? 3 weeks from tomorrow? Hey, sorry. But Dever, right? So it's one of the plagues, excuse me. And Reshev he translates it as sparks or fiery bolts. It's interesting that JPS translates it as plague. Um, yeah, because I mean, it is referring to plague-like behavior, but do you have it translated as plague or fiery bolts or sparks or something?
Fire went forth at his feet.
Ah, okay, great. Yeah, yeah, because it's
Well,
sorry,
so I'm sorry, you're talking about
Reshef. Beit Reshef for Raglav.
Russia. Okay, not
Yeah,
Dever. Dever is pestilence.
right, exactly. Right. Dever,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the same thing. Okay.
Right, but so for some reason JPS chooses to make Reshef a general plague, whereas it does seem to be,
Yeah. No,
as Beasley points out, it appears in Tehillim 78:48 to describe the thunderbolts that God sent against the Egyptian flocks. Right, so that it has a specific translation. Um, excuse me. Okay. Amad v'yimoded eretz ra'ah v'yater goyim v'yipotetsu hararei ad shachu givot olam halichot olam lo. God standing up makes the earth shake. A mere glance makes the nations tremble. The age-old mountains are shattered. The primeval hills sink low. God's routes are ancient. All right. BC has, he stood and meted out to the earth. He saw and caused nations to wander, and the everlasting mountains were shattered, and the everlasting hills were humbled. I feel like it sounds a little cleaner that way.
This is the source for Talmud of Eliyahu of Halichot Olam Lo, Al Tikra Halichot Ela Halachot, which is that
Right.
if
Yeah.
you study the ways of Hashem, you will inherit the world to come.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I have the last line translated as "For the ways of the world are his, where they have God's roots are ancient." That's not very literal, is it?
I know. No, it's really not. It's really, really not. Yeah. He also, the ways of the world are his.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it means by that. Halichot olam lo, God's. I don't know. All right, here's our last verse of the theophany. Tachat aven ra'iti ohale kushan, yirgezun yiriot eretz Midian. As a scene of havoc, I behold the tents of Kushan. Shaken are the pavilions of the land of Midian. Right, so we can hear, of course, in the English and the Hebrew, it rhymes. So that's a good way to end that section.
I've got because of our iniquity, I saw the tents of Cushan, not as a
right.
scene of
Same
havoc.
thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Because often would be a sin, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what Beasley uses also. Yeah, right. And
Because
Kushan, meaning and Midian are in the south, and we're seeing that, all right, we're already starting to see that their downfall is here.
right, and both nations attacked the Jewish people,
Hmm.
especially during the time of the judges. But Kushan was also, I think somewhere else it says Kushan Rishatayim, but there was a war between Asa and a million, because they didn't have that word, so it's Elef Elafim, Ethiopians, um, for Kush.
Hmm.
Um, so these two nations were always against the Jewish people, no matter what, right? Like it was, the only good person from Midian was Yitro.
Hmm.
Um, Everybody else was against us. So
Hmm. Yep. So Kushan is Kush. It's the same. right?
That's what I think, but
Right. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not
That's what I
100%
assumed.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now what Beasley argues with verse 8 is that while the next verses, meaning 8 through 15, continue with the theophanic description that emphasizes God's might and alludes to historical events from Israel's past, they shift from a detached third person description of God's approach and actions to directly addressing God. All right. So we now speak to God directly. Havin harim chara Hashem, im b'neharim apecha, im bayam evratecha, ki tirkav al susecha, markevotcha Yeshua. Are you wroth, O Eternal One, with Neharim? Is your anger against Neharim, your rage against Yam, that you are driving your steeds, your victorious chariots? All right, I'm just going to read the translation that Beasley uses because it's very different. Was the Lord angry with the rivers? Is his wrath against the rivers or his fury against the sea? Only that you rode on your steeds with your chariots of salvation. Right, so here the JPS leaves Neharim as a proper noun, right, as a title for a place, I guess. But this translation actually uses it to mean Nahar, rivers, right, and sea, generally speaking. Does anyone have any comments on that or translations?
The translation's like Beasley in mine.
Yeah, I wonder if he's using. Which one do you use, Wendy? Remind me. You're muted.
Odd scroll.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, so now GPS says here that the reason it's using Neharim and Yam, they were marine monsters vanquished by God in hoary antiquity. My goodness. Okay. I don't
I
think.
think
Yeah.
it's alluding to Yetziat Mitzrayim because you have there as the sea, the parting of the sea, and Merkavot, Yeshua. And I guess the idea of Merkavot is expressed in Yechezkel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's like a combination of both those. But is he still talking to the Jews or is he talking to Cush and Midian?
It's a good
Who is he
question. I
talking
see it just says talking to God. Interesting.
I,
What does everyone else think? Where did he in actions? Right. I think it's supposed to be directly addressing God.
so he's challenging God or?
Well, it seems to be praising, but yeah, I agree. Hang on a second. A mention of God's
I have a comment that
Yes,
talks
please.
about the Red Sea as being the sea.
Okay.
When he split the Red Sea, was he angry at the sea?
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
And the chariots was also a reference to the chariots of Pharaoh's army.
Okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, I apparently there's a commentary that sees the same references you, and I agree. It does kind of evoke the parting of the waters when they were in
Mm-hmm.
Egypt.
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And actually the Pharaoh's Merkavot
Right.
completes the idea. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the commentary in front of me, but that's
Yeah, no,
good.
he has a whole paragraph on that too.
Yeah.
Mine
Okay.
suggests this as a verse, firstly as a prayer thanking God and then addressing God.
Mm. Okay. All right, here. Eriya Taor Kashtecha Shavuot Matot Omer Sela Neharot Tibaka Aretz. All bared and ready is your bow, sworn are the rods of the word Selah. You make the earth burst into streams. So we'll just combine it with 10. Reucha Yachilu Harim, Zerem Mayim Avar, Natan Tehom Kolo, Rom Yadehu Nasa. The mountains rock at the sight of you. A torrent of rain comes down. Loud roars the deep. The sky returns the echo. All right, so look, we're turning to all the different elements of nature, right? And
Ruth, I really dislike their translations when it says the mountains rock. You can imagine what all young people read that as the mountains rocking instead of shuddering. It makes it sound like it's a band playing and the mountains are rocking. It should be the mountains saw you and shuddered.
Oh yeah, and here he says quaked. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great point. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the same thing. Mountains saw you and quaked. A stream of water passed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, stream of water passed. That's what he, yep, yep. Whew. Sorry, I'm just checking. He's very he doesn't spend a lot of time going on this. All BC says is verse 9 shifts to simple and short statements that Chabakuk makes about God, who, having unsheathed his bow and his rods, is described as preparing his weaponry. Right, so God's getting ready for all of these different things. The sky returns the echo, meaning of Hebrew uncertain.
Is that meant to be like kind of thunder or?
The deep gave forth its voice. That's what Beasley says.
It sounds like earthquake and the
Yeah, I don't know.
shattering and a hole comes. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, I'm not quite sure
Hmm.
what this is about. I guess it's telling God you have power to do all this.
Right. Yeah. And Beasley says, it's not clear from these verses who's the beneficiary of God's actions. Right. The message is clear that just as God has intervened in the past to redeem Israel from its enemies, Habakkuk has no doubt that God will do so again in the future. That said, it's not clear what Habakkuk's actually talking about. Yeah.
So there's a reference to, well, I'll just read it. When this is about the mountains saw you and quaked.
Mm-hmm.
When the Israelites prepared to pass through the valley of Arnon, the Amorites lay in wait for them in the caves of one of two mountains overlooking the valley, ready to slay the Israelites. On the opposite side, closer to the Holy Land, was another mountain. Miraculously, the mountain closer to the Holy Land moved towards the mountain, crushing closer to Moab, crushing the Amorites lying in wait for Israel.
Mm.
Habakkuk describes this as the mountains saw you and quaked.
Okay.
So
Great.
again, it's the whole Yetzias Mitzrayim in the passage. It's going back to that time.
Mm-hmm.
Images.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. So similar stuff here. Shemesh, Yarech, Amad, Zvula, Leor Chitzecha, Yehalechu, Lenoga, Barak, Chanitecha. Sun and moon stand still on high as your arrows fly in brightness, your flashing spear in brilliance. Beza'am titzad aretz be'af tadush goyim. You tread the earth in rage. You trample nations in fury. I'm just wondering. Okay. He says, verse 12 makes clear that God has gone to war because of God's indignation with regard to the evil and injustice in the world. All right, right. So 12, you can see is kind of that turning point a little bit. Then until now we're praising nature and describing it, and now in 12 it's like, nope, and you're also angry, right? And you're trampling these other nations in fury. Um, and we see even clearer in 13, Yatzata leyesha amecha, leyesha et meshichecha, machatzta rosh mibeit rasha, or arot yesod ad savar sela. You have come forth to deliver your people, to deliver your anointed. You will smash the roof of the villain's house, raise it from foundation to top Sela. Beasley says, verse 13 clarifies the corresponding principle that this was all done for the benefit of the Jewish people. Yeah. Please jump in if you have footnotes or anything. Nakafta b'matzav. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah. Go ahead.
the first time that Hashem is called Ish Milchama is in the Song of the Sea. So, if I understand correctly, Chabakuk is basically saying, you've proved yourself so many times before. Why can't you? Well, why would be the prayer? Why can't you just do it again and fight all these other people and let us see it for real?
Interesting.
We're just
So you're saying it's a bakasha, it's a request, not like a declaration.
because he starts with tefillah, so
Mm,
um, even in Nishmat Kol Chai we say very similar stuff. You know, you've proven that you do all these amazing things, and can you please continue,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's an accusation. It's just basically like this is the kind of relationship we have with you, and please, please continue.
Okay. Interesting. This so it gets yeah, and 14, we're just going right upward towards more violence. Nakafte b'matav rosh parazav yisa'aru lahafitzeni alitzutam kemo le'echol ani b'mistar. You will crack the enemy's skull with your bludgeon. I think that should be pierce, really, but okay. Blown away shall be his warriors, whose delight is to crush me suddenly, to devour a pauper in an ambush. Oh, he says crush the head of the house of the wicked. Does anyone have pierced?
Yes.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Nakov means to pierce.
Yeah, Steinsal's is pierced too.
Oh yeah, you know what? I may have been looking in the wrong place. Or no, I think he rearranges verse 14 here. I think that's what's going on. Okay. Yeah. All right. So Pierce. Um, I love le'echol ani b'mistar, right? To devour a pauper in ambush. Here he translates it more literally. Their joy was when they could devour a poor person in secret. I love that as right. It's not really a metaphor. That's his original complaint is the abuse suffered by the righteous, right? Or I shouldn't say the righteous, but by people who are just, right? People who are resisting corruption. And yeah, now the condemnation is they could secretly just destroy people. And we know, right? That's what happens to people who don't have agency is that the ones who do just completely abuse them, and half the time we don't even find out about it, right? So I really like that metaphor. I think it's very simple and powerful. Um, okay. All right, our last one of this section. Dorachta bayam susecha chomer mayim rabim. You will make your steeds tread the sea, stirring the mighty waters. Now, I don't know why here it's you will make bees, the Hebrew and Beasley both say you trampled in the sea with your steeds, a heap of many waters, right? Dorachta, you already did this. So I don't know why they make it as a future tense here. I love that by Yam, that you will stamp through the waters. It's just very powerful. Strong image. Okay, how much time do we have? Oh, good, we have time. All right. So, any comments on that now? All right. So that was our warlike imagery. So we've praised God, as having all the majestic powers. Now we said, here's the way that God has power, and then war, and now we're piercing skulls, right? But of course, it's all for the purpose of, I don't want to just say vengeance, really, but right, but like almost redemption, I guess, redeeming the just by destroying the wicked. I don't know. Anyway, okay, so now our conclusion is 4 more verses.
Ruth, sorry,
Yeah.
just my footnote has those 14 to 19 either referring to Sennacherib and his officers or to Messianic times and Gog.
Okay. Okay, great. That's interesting, right? So is this that God's destroying Sennacherib, right, the Assyrians? Or is this a future messianic? Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because it does seem like Habakkuk has kind of gone from the literal, please tell me the Babylonians are coming to, or God saying the Babylonians are coming to destroy the Assyrians, to now saying, okay, but if we're waiting, right? And if we're talking about waiting, of course, we're thinking messianic times. It does seem to take that shift. All right. Now, 16. Shamati v'tirgaz bitni lekol tzalalu svatai bitni lekol tzalalu svatai yavo rakav atamai batachti ergaz asher anuach leyom tzara la'alot la'am yegudenu. I heard and my bowels quaked, my lips quivered at the sound, rot entered into my bone. I trembled where I stood. Yet I wait calmly for the day of distress, for a people to come to attack us. So, okay, this is kind of an interesting verse, right? Because he's saying like, when I hear all of this, I'm shaking, right? It's so profound. It's so scary. Uh, he, yeah. I'm just sorry. Let me just play the time I would rest is destined. Okay, right. So that's he's scared, right? If you have footnotes to say anything specific about this, please jump in. Yeah. Then he continues, Ki te'ena lo tifrach ve'ein yavul begfanim ki chesh ma'aseh zait ushtemot lo asa ochel gazar mimichla tzon ve'ein bakar beraftaim. Sorry. Berefatim, my goodness. Though the fig tree does not bud and no yield is on the vine, though the olive crop has failed and the fields produce no grain, though sheep have vanished from the fold and no cattle are in the pen, right? So everything we just described is terrible, right? Like nothing is growing and there's no animals, nothing, right? There's no promise of growth whatsoever at all, right? Whether animal, food, anything. What do we say in 18? Ve'ani b'Hashem eloza agila be'Elohei Yishi. Yet I will rejoice in God, exult in the God who delivers me. Hashem Adonai cheli ve'yasem raglai ka'ayalot be'al bamotai adircheni lamnatzeach beniginotai. The sovereign is my strength, making my feet like the deer's and letting me stride upon the heights for the leader with instrumental music, right? That's kind of just a concluding thing. All right. So, what do we make of this? We started with anger that God is ignoring the pleas of the just and the cries. And now we're concluding with, well, even though I look around and there is absolutely no hope whatsoever at all, I am still going to not just have faith in God, but rejoice in God, right? Celebrate God because I get everything from God. And so I think one of the great questions of Chabakuk is, well, there's so many questions. One way to see this, of course, is this is the ultimate transformation of faith, right? I could also see some people who are not so naturally religiously inclined looking at this and saying, yeah, this is why I think religion is pathetic, right? You look around at a world that is completely desolate and hopeless, and you're still celebrating, something that there's no evidence that this thing is doing anything right actually for you. So I don't know, does anyone have any thoughts on this?
All right.
Please.
From my experience with grief support,
Yeah.
I would say that dabda, so denial, anger, bargaining,
Mm-hmm.
What's the second D? I don't remember, but acceptance is the last stage. So yes, Chavakuk is exactly telling us what that is, meaning even though I'm angry at God, even though I've been, saying this isn't fair, and can you please give me something else, or any other kind of emotion. Bottom line, if we don't get to acceptance, nothing is going to change, and so he's not forcing us to accept this. Nobody nobody sings and dances on the Holocaust Memorial Day, but we must accept it because Otherwise, our real faith is gone. Like
Yeah.
it's up to us to make that connection and to achieve that level of acceptance. I don't know. I don't think most of the group knows, but it, 25 years ago, I had leukemia and I was so angry with God.
Mm.
Um, I stopped giving kosher. I stopped giving Shabbos. It was like, but I wouldn't be here today if I didn't get to that level of acceptance in one way or another. So
Hmm. Do you feel like it's interesting you use the word acceptance. Do you feel like do you feel like that was sort of the culmination of where you reached acceptance, or do you feel like you reached the point of like Ali's like joy even or
no,
um
I'm not happy that I had leukemia. I can't really relate to what Chabakuk is talking about,
mm-hmm
but acceptance is a form of I'm just um,
mm-hmm yeah
I don't remember what the
Uh,
second D is.
yeah
Oof.
so Ruth, I'm confused because I'm not sure what Pasuk 17
yeah
are
go
are
back
they
to
talking about what's going to happen to Israel? Are they talking about what's going
right
to happen to Israel's enemies? Because you could read it either way and it means something completely different.
yeah let's see if
I
Are
think it's a reaction to the destruction that was described in a previous thing. You have this earthquake, you have this earth disappearing, and suddenly you don't have any more farming. There's nothing growing.
mm-hmm
But
Yeah, but
I don't.
all the prophecies that we have today are supposed to also be relevant to our life, not only about those times, because the Talmud says that there were 600,000 prophets, and most of them didn't make it into the Bible because they weren't for eternity. Um, you're 100% right, but it also we're going to see times that that there's that there's nothing. There's no growth. There's no uh, meat. There's no what looks to us as advancement. But we have to we say before the Haftarah, Shekol Divrei Nevi'im Emet, that all the words of the prophets are true because they're not only true to their time, they're also true to our time because otherwise, why else would they make it into the Bible, especially the minor prophets?
Yeah,
Um,
I can see it that way because the description is basically of chaos. You can describe the current wars, you can describe the Holocaust by what
mm-hmm
Habakkuk is saying. Um, but Habakkuk, I guess, is optimistic that at some
right
point, despite of all the fall upon us, we still are going to be happy with God. It seems unrealistic. So I don't know if he's talking about the times, the future state of.
Yeah, Beasley seems to imply that it he refers to this as eloquently describing the devastation that warfare will inflict on the land of Israel. So I think what he's saying, he doesn't say it explicitly. I think what he's saying is this is what it's going to feel like to look around after the Babylonians come through. That to me seems different. Like finding joy within that to me feels different than saying like this is a message for all time. Yeah, like looking around, the Holocaust and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, look, it's like the Gemara and the end of Makot, where Rabbi Akiva sees, the fox walking out of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash and starts laughing, right? Because he knows it means that, redemption will happen, all that stuff. Yeah, it's there are different ways to read it. I do think it's an interesting statement of faith, and I think the types it reveals a lot about my personality. That I think what I find most intriguing about this book is how what does it mean that we start with someone willing to challenge God and the injustices of the world and conclude with someone who's kind of just accepting the world as it is while having faith that one day God will change it, right? And I don't think it's suggesting that you stop fighting for justice in this world because you just have faith in one day it will change, right? But it's is it a comment on the natural human condition of just like Rav Yosef, how you said how we survive, right? You just have to survive by having faith, and that's the only way to get through the day. Or is there something more profound happening here? I think we could debate for a while. I'm just mindful of the time. And I'm happy to discuss it more next week. The one last thing I would say about Habakkuk, to come back to what I said at the very beginning, is that once again, if his name had not been Habakkuk, meaning something clunky in Hebrew and English, and I would imagine other languages as well, I think it would probably be a more widespread name because this is, it's a very beautiful book about the journey from anger to ultimate faith in God. And certainly that is a message that would, in theory, appeal to a lot of people. So I have to think it's just the clunkiness of the name that kind of made him disappear a little bit from history, which is so sad.
But we
Yeah,
don't really know why he
the
comes to
second D is
acceptance.
depression. I just remembered, sorry.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
The second D is
Oh,
depression.
yeah. Yeah, we don't
Very
know where the
appropriate
faith
for
comes
verse
from.
17, where nothing is working.
Yeah,
Everything.
it is interesting, like that idea that it's right. He doesn't have any interaction with God, right? It's not like Sefer Yonah, right, where Yonah's struggling and God keeps like directly sending messages and all these things. This seems to all be an internal process within Habakkuk, right? So I think that thank you for saying that, Wendy, and others, because that is an important thing to touch on. Um, it's all the internal process here. The external world doesn't change. Just Habakkuk does. And maybe that's part of the message. God's not teaching him a lesson, he's teaching himself a lesson. So,
I think also, Ruth, that one of the messages that comes from this is, or questions is, how do we get that faith?
mm-hmm.
How do we individually come upon the faith that we need to do what Habakkuk is talking about?
Yeah,
It's the same thing everybody's talking about right now in this war thing. You can identify what's wrong, but taking action is people get stifled. They get frozen and they can't do anything. And when you tell people that, "Hey, just have faith," well, how do I get that?
right, right. Yep.
So we have to go to Tanya for that.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta go to Kabbalistic thinking for it.
Yeah, totally.
But it is there. The instructions for this.
Mm-hmm.
It does exist.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. All right, I'm sorry. I have a student coming to meet with me in a minute, so I have to run. Thank you, everyone. This was lovely. We will plan to meet next week. Enjoy the weather while it lasts.
Thanks, Ruth.
All right, have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
Ruth.
Bye bye.